You are unique, just like everybody else. This is something I say often with a joking undertone. If you think about it though, this is actually very true. We all have our unique background and experiences that have shaped us and made us who we are today. This diversity is sometimes something that I find extremely beautiful. Yet somehow, I look around and often see society stuck in silo or box thinking, even though there is so much to learn from each other. Some of this diversity is very visible, some of it is not. But one thing that is important for all of us is the sense of belonging. They say diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance, but belonging is dancing like nobody is watching. So what if you don't fit into one of these societal silos? And is there really a person who only fits into one? Let's take myself as an example, using a seemingly very simple question. A question that I sometimes struggle with. Where are you from? Simple, right? 4 words, easy icebreaker question, yet I never quite know how to answer this question, and sometimes my answer changes depending on who is posing the question, or the situation that I'm in. Essentially, my answer depends on which cultural silo I am in that moment. Of the 17.5 million people residing in the Netherlands on the 1st of January 2021, 14% were born abroad. They came to the Netherlands as migrants. Another 11.4% of the population were born in the Netherlands as children of migrants. This makes it an international melting pot of cultures, and one that is very attractive to people wanting to move to Europe. And as the concept of crossing borders and moving abroad has become easier compared to the previous generations, with our modern technologies and easy transportation, I have no doubt this number will only increase. And yes, as you may have guessed, I am one of them. I was born in the UK to a Belgian mother and a Dutch father. My elementary school memories are great, yet there was also a lot of confusion because at the time we lived in the Netherlands, but I attended school in Belgium. So even though through my parents' heritage and through my passports I fit in both silos, I actually never fully felt like I fit into one. And then when I was 12, another layer of complexity was added to my mix when we moved to Houston, Texas for 2 years, followed by a move to a small coastal town outside of Barcelona called Sitges for the next 4. So by the time I was 18, I had lived in 5 different countries. And so I grew up and got shaped by these different cultures, not really fitting or wanting to fit into one cultural silo or box. So as you can see, where am I from is a complicated question. And I often ask myself, which cultural silo fits me best? Sometimes I say the Netherlands, sometimes I say Belgium, sometimes I say both, and none of these answers are untruthful, yet they do not feel like the truth to me, because the person that I am today was also shaped by other cultures, the other cultures that I grew up in, and the other cultures that I love. And so naturally, I don't like silos or boxes. As humans, we like to understand everything that is happening around us. And because there is information flying at us, we create so-called cognitive misers or shortcuts to help us process all the information that comes at us all day long. So a simple answer like I'm from the Netherlands, which is not a lie and also not a full truth, is great. Because we may have certain aspects that we associate to somebody with a Dutch nationality. Like for example, Dutch people may be called stingy or direct or both. So it is easier for us to understand with the tendency to kind of put people in silos or boxes. And this is what we have come to know as unconscious bias. And these unconscious biases, they help us. They help us to make sense of the world. Like a colleague of mine mentioned in a meeting we had discussing unconscious biases, if you were to run into a bear in the forest, you would quickly try to flee because the association you have with the bear is that it is dangerous. You act by instinct. There is no time to first observe the bear. And to add to this concept, there is a lot of research that shows that we tend to like people that are similar to us, and this is for several reasons. So one of them is that we tend to think that people who are similar to us are more likely to like us, and we as humans, we really like to be liked. And funnily enough, research has also shown that people are more likely to see self-expansion opportunities when interacting with someone who is similar to them rather than somebody who is different to them, even though a dissimilar person would actually be more likely to provide new knowledge and experiences. So does that mean that we're all wired to this silo and box thinking? So although perhaps inevitable, I don't like putting people in boxes. Just ask any of my friends and they will tell you I go to great lengths to try and explain why silo or box thinking may be holding us back as a society to be more inclusive. Yet a few years ago, I came across the concept of third culture kids, which was first described in the 1950s by US sociologist Ruth Hill Unseen. Third culture kids are people who were raised in a culture other than their parents' or the culture of their country of nationality, and also have lived in a different environment during a significant part of their child development years. So American sociologist Ruth Van Reken has done a lot of research on these third culture kids. And she says that these people tend to have a broader worldview and are more culturally aware. But she also warns that the life as a third culture kid can create a sense of rootlessness and restlessness, where home is everywhere and nowhere. So maybe this is my cultural silo, a silo for those who do not have one. And if we were to open up this silo or unpack this box, so to say, it will contain some Dutch, some Belgian, some American, and some Spanish boxes. Whereas for another third culture kid, the unpacking of this box would most likely reveal a bunch of other boxes. This silo contains many differences because most third culture kids most likely did not grow up in the same countries or have the same nationalities. Yet it is the experience of being raised in different cultures which creates this box. And these individuals, they find themselves in, for example, their sense of rootlessness and restlessness, where home is everywhere and also nowhere. So this third culture kid silo is, of course, not my only silo, nor is it the only silo that contains differences. I am, for example, also a woman. And if we were to unpack that box, it will most likely not contain all the same boxes as, say, my best girlfriends would. So do we really think in silos, or are all these silos and boxes on this multidimensional plane all touching each other and overlapping? Have you, for example, noticed that when you talk to somebody who is seemingly completely different to you, that you tend to be surprised by how much you actually have in common with them? I sure have, even if sometimes it takes a couple of conversations before I get that realization. But does that mean we should only be focusing on these similarities and ignore the differences? I don't think so. Because when I try to visualize these society-created silos and boxes in my mind on this multidimensional plane, outside of all these intersections of all of our society-made boxes or silos is actually where, in my opinion, the magic happens. This is where we grow and learn from each other's differences. And we, as a society, need these different pieces. Much like, for example, if you were to go to IKEA to buy a cupboard, and you would come home to find that the box that the cupboard came in only contained the screws, you would not be able to build that cupboard. You need other tools, other pieces like planks and bolts and those little wooden things that I never quite remember the name of. You need them all to build this cupboard. And the cupboard is like all of us. It is made of different pieces. And a cupboard alone doesn't make a dining room. You need chairs, you need a table, you need a lamp, and depending on your style, you may need many or some accessories. And all of these pieces making up this one room may have things in common, but they most certainly have things that are different. But together, they make a dining room. And this dining room is, in fact, only one of the many rooms that make a house. And just like that, we, as a society, we need many different boxes with different types of content that make us all individual humans. Individuals that respect each other's differences are the base of a strong society. A society where we all belong. A society where we can all dance like nobody is watching. So to quote a really good friend of mine, let us meet where our differences overlap.